really, and now you're live.
I'll intro us then. Welcome to the conference committee on H.454. I think we are at the point where maybe we will walk through the proposal that we had Ledge Council do.
Really appreciate the proposals that you brought forward. All of a sudden, I'm like, I have no idea what time of day we talked about that earlier. And think what we're putting forward meets you in a lot of those and stays within the confines of our two positions simultaneously. And we, for the purposes of us all being on the same page about what we're doing, we asked staff to really put it in the context of the full bill. It's just the first half of the bill, the education policy sections, followed your lead and kept those two conversations a little bit separate. And so they're color coded. It's fantastic.
I'll have copies. Yeah.
And I think you had them on the floor with you, though I'm sure you were paying attention to the bill in front of you on the floor.
Maybe did both.
And I'm wondering from a process, and I think Peter's going to take us through it all, but from a process perspective, I think the most, if what we could do this evening, I guess, is as much as possible when we have agreement on a section to really just like check it off and say, we are closing this section in order to narrow our focus a little bit. Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Check it off.
Okay.
Okay, what I'll try to do is kind of go broadly, kind of based on the side by side, speak more specifically to the language we have, and when I can sort of cross-reference it to what you proposed earlier today, I will, although this was created before we received your proposal. I'm not going to spend much time on section 1, the findings and intent, because there were only a couple of parts that you had deleted but have now been okay with, and we had added back in. So I'm going to bring us up to, the commission work. On a broad sense, we agreed to your desire to pull this from the commission and have it be its own.
Before we do that,
Yeah.
can we just, given that, say that section 1 is finished?
The Senate proposed adding in SUs in letter C. So that is not included in what we have proposed. SUs are referred to later on in your proposal of amendment, which I'm pretty sure we have included. So this is just intent language. So to the degree that we can just sort of keep it as is, knowing that that's coming up, that would be good.
Where did we? Right here. It's big C, is that where you're at?
Because we're hoping that anything that we didn't have changes, that you didn't change in your proposal of amendment that you passed in the Senate, we would keep closed.
What does that mean?
So anything that, so like within the usual rules of a committee of conference, if there wasn't a difference in language between our two past bills, we would try not to touch that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The SU language. Let's see.
So that'd be in our piece, that'd be page 4 of 67, line 6. I think somewhere in there it says larger school districts, line 10, actually.
We had considered larger supervisory districts or supervisory districts.
Right. In the governor's proposal and all the other proposals, it really just refers to school districts. And I know that you have an interest in including SUs as part of the consideration. Just pointing out that it doesn't say it here. Not sure this was created previous to that. However, later on, when we talk about some of the other language, especially with the district boundary subcommittee work, I'm pretty sure we agreed to the SU language there. So I just want you to know that it's upcoming. This, and what we talked about was intent language only. So back to the commission, which starts also on page 4. And this work, I'm just going to speak somewhat broadly to it and go to the language. So essentially, we agreed to your desire to pull the district boundary drawing entity out of the commission as a subcommittee and have it be its own task force, and resourced at an appropriate level, as you suggested, although we may have some suggestions on that resource level. We agreed to add to the work of the commission as it continues your suggestion in the side-by-side on page 4, in the second bullet, which was how to maintain and improve community engagement, local decision-making with transitional and new school board, how to improve voter turnout, etc. We did not put in the next bullet down because it's already been worked on. I think already been statute for the Commission on Future Public Education to do. So then we did add, so you'll see us adding that language to the commission on page 10 down there at the bottom in green. Green being Senate language, or blue, I guess. That's blue. Yeah,
I see it, yeah.
Then we go to page 12, and because we are we're agreeing with moving the boundary group to a task force outside of the commission, we still felt it was important to have a strong tie between the commission. So that's another spot. But we also felt that the work of the commission and its public engagement work still should be discussing a future state and future districts. So we sort of moved that subject back to the commission as a standalone thing, saying the commission shall study and make recommendations regarding how larger consolidated school districts shall operate, how school boards in larger districts can operate efficiently and effectively and still maintain connection to local communities throughout each district. So again, no longer a subcommittee of the commission.
So you added that to the charge of the commission.
Yeah, that's the charge of the commission. We stuck with our language for the makeup of the task force, largely because when working between the two proposals, ours had a higher number of legislators, which some people have asked that there be a majority, which we don't have, but we do have an elevated number compared to the proposal from the Senate. Moving on to page 19 of 67. Task force, what it shall consider. Where are you at right now? I'm sorry, in ours, I'm on page 19 of 67.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is what the task force shall consider. And I'll be honest, it's just an amalgam of our two proposals, and at some point we could winnow those down if we felt that was appropriate. Let's see, we then kept more of the House language that you see at the bottom of 20, but again, it's just about CTE. And so the new, it doesn't exist elsewhere. You'll see on 21, that just is to say that the standalone task force shall still work closely with the commission, the commission's community engagement process. It still is a standalone task force but we want to take advantage of the work of the commission being part of that. We kept our date of December 1st as opposed to November 1st, just because it seems like we could give as much time as possible. We discussed for a moment who calls the first meeting. So out of our appointees, we decided that the one member who was being appointed by the governor could have that role. But then we will elect a chair from the first meeting. We kept the voting ward working group in place because if they can be sort of activated and play a role in giving us a jump start on making wards.
Before you go to that, I just want to flag the appropriation at the top of page
Oh, yes.
23. We're still working with, just because we just had a chance to sit down the appropriation side of JFO. So
Yeah.
it's not like major changes, just want to flag that that's not our full proposal there.
Right, yeah. We appreciate you resourcing this task force to a level that it really probably needs. We might do some refining as to who holds the money and what the actual amount would be total. So the task force or the working group for ward drawing, we kept it in there again. So if there's an opportunity to get a jump start on making wards, that would be great. I think it's probably fair to say that they won't do much unless there is an ability to do it after the testimony we heard today about, like, don't jump the gun if you're still going to be manipulating lines. Moving on to page 26, the next set of colored language, we accepted your proposal for class size minimums. Moving on to page 28, we accepted your proposal of going to 3 consecutive school years and changing the shall to a may. We now jump to page 31. We continue to feel it's important to move forward on statewide graduation requirements. That'll come up again in another part, but just to sort of speak philosophically about it, it would be good to get this work underway and done for many reasons, but one of the kind of ones that stands out to us is that right now it's really hard for students who are CTE students to also meet their home schools graduation requirements because they're all different. And so if we can come up with some uniformity, hopefully we can create CTE programs that will allow more students to meet their statewide graduation requirements at their CTE, rather than having to sort of give up part of their CTE education because there might be a somewhat unique requirement back at their high school that they have to do.
The other thing I would offer is if in a few years, we're interested in measuring if we're spending this money the way we intended it to, which I think we've discussed, it would be important to have statewide standards with which to judge that. And this is one of those.
So yeah, and we included the governor's proposal to strike the words proficiency based with graduation requirements. I don't think it makes a difference because proficiency based graduation requirements are in statute, but just in terms of the language they wanted, it didn't seem to matter too much. So if you see where in the yellow where it says statewide graduation requirements, ours previously said statewide efficiency-based graduation requirements. So on page 33, again, this is where graduation requirements is asked for. The previous part where it mentions it is talking about the State Board of Education beginning work on it. We also still consider it important to have a statewide school calendar. Again, this is among the many reasons uniformity for CTEs being able to operate when they're in sort of when they're on that sort of border area and have schools that might be taking a vacation one time, other schools that take vacation another time. Okay. Page 36, we accepted, sort of, your proposal for, school closure, the school closure language. But sort of said, okay, but let's let the, State Board of Education make the decision. So in other words, took what you had, and I gotta find that page.
Really wanted to make sure that we had given sort of some of the language didn't have definition on it yet, and it seems like we're late in the game to be creating definitions, which in my opinion, I think all of our experiences can be quite contentious. Moving that process to the,
Professional judgment panel.
Well, I'm really speaking
to
just with
the
it.
board.
Yeah, this is really, I'm trying to speak between the two proposals. And to the extent that they connect with this, I hope in many cases they do. So anyway, we are sort of saying, yes, we agree with the language you proposed. However, with the addition that somebody has to make a decision as to whether that's the appropriate thing to do, and we bump it to the state board. We are looking at all of the school construction is agreed to. Again, thanks to the good work of our task forces. That brings up to page 51. And so to sort of meet, and I realize this is going to be an area of continued discussion. This is what qualifies as an approved independent school. You can see the green Senate language there. We just took a page from you all and sort of moved off the 51. We went down to 40. And just it's one, I'm going to move to the section over here. Yeah, the 40% of its student enrollment. So you'll see that as we discussed the other day, we just say blanket student enrollment as opposed to a percentage of the number of Vermont students who are at that school. To recognize that, as all of us, I think, can agree to, we're trying to recognize that there are some schools that are served as public schools for areas that simply don't operate them. Moving on to page 53, governance. That's something I was going to bring up. 23, I think we had a to any cities get. Oh, anyway, somewhere in here, your proposal to us, original proposal from the Senate, removed the intent on school size. We also agreed to that, and so you don't see that in here. Forward. Special ed study.
When it's yellow because it was rephrased, remove that section.
Yes.
Thank you. I think the last.
Oh, then the last page is really the appropriation.
Let's ignore that for now, please.
Yeah, because we'll have sort of further clarification on that, but I think we could just sort of say in general, the appropriations and the positions and all of that, we're fine with simplifying.
Yeah, we just want if they're like JFO technical
Yeah.
tweaks and then making sure that the money's going to the right place for the people who are doing contracting.
So, if you flow back through, you can see the areas where we agreed to the I'd especially note the minimum class sizes, the minimum class size sort of enforcement part, going from 2 to 3 years, shall to a may. Some of the language. Pulling the district boundary task force out of the commission, resourcing it as you had proposed. So I guess I should just pause and ask if you have questions.
We understand it.
Okay. Are you interested in going through just section by section and saying like, we're good, we can accept all?
We probably want to do that. We probably need to get together.
Okay.
And analyze.
Should we call it a dinner break then?
Can we, yeah,
Or do you want to get together for 10 minutes?
Oh, and, I think, we'll be getting together for time for dinner. So why don't we just try to meet 15 minutes? Does that seem like enough for us?
We'll shoot